Greetings, everyone. Just like I mentioned in class earlier today, I was going to continue with this budgeting exercise to help you finish it in today's class while I'm gone. So here it is. I've plugged in my information over here. Yesterday we started with your salary, that amount that you had picked out from whatever career that you chose. We broke it into 12 parts or one monthly amount, and that gave us whatever amount we have here as our gross pay. Then we calculated some taxes yesterday, giving us our net pay or our take-home pay. You may also have net income here. And then we come down and we put in some fixed expenses. You'll notice that I added trash here. I forgot about the trash bill. It's the same every month. It's $13. And we talked about student loans, and then we had a total fixed expenses yesterday. So you might want to add trash because that's typically a fixed expense. It usually stays the same every month. One that I forgot today in class. So the next thing we were getting ready to talk about was variable expenses. All right, and so I have a nice listing here for you, and I have the amounts generally that I'll pay for these different activities. So I'm going to go through and explain them briefly, and then I'm going to let you take some time to plug yours in, and then we'll do a little calculation here at the bottom to help you do that. So electricity, it is what it is. That's what you pay to have the lights come on and use outlets and things of that nature. Ours, on average for the year, when we pay for total electricity, is somewhere around $200. And that average is based on in the winter months, it's usually not as high. And in the summer months, it's usually higher because the air conditioning runs through our electricity. Um, Conversely, in the winter months, we have a heating bill which is controlled by our gas, and so our heating bill is traditionally higher in the winter, but that's only about 3 months worth, and the rest of the time, maybe 4, 5, depending on the year, but the rest of the time it's not as high. It's not, in fact, it's like 40 or 50 bucks maybe. So the gas bill on average is about 130 bucks a month, and so for a given year, I'm trying to average 130 bucks a month for heating and roughly 200. I'd like it to be less than 200, but with Westar doing the things that they do, I don't have much control over that. So 200 bucks is what I think is realistic for the house that I have. Now, the smaller house you have, maybe the better insulation that you have, the less that bill could possibly be. The bigger your house, generally the larger these bills are going to be. So keep that in mind as you come up with your amount. If you were going to kind of generalize what you think you'd be paying for it, my house is 2,900 square feet, so 5 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a couple living rooms in the basement, a living room upstairs, kitchen, dining room, that kind of thing. So if that's the average house, which I think it kind of is, I think that's somewhere in the middle. Um, that's your average pay that you're going to have. I told you I'm pretty middle when it comes to a lot of things. Our water bill is roughly $40 a month, um, and that's just a general charge. I would say some months it's 50, some months it's 30. It just depends on how much we're using it, and how much we're here, really. I will tell you this: we put a well in for our sprinkler system about 8 years ago now, and that's been a huge help for us because when we watered our grass and used the city water, it was crazy. We had a water bill of 300 bucks. So that's something you want to consider if you like a green grass and a green yard. Um, Definitely keep an eye on whether you need a well or not. You don't want to be paying 300 bucks on this bill. Groceries, I try to allocate. I know this one says 500. I'm actually going to increase that. I'm going to make it 650 because my kids are getting bigger. Back when they were babies, it was pretty easy to control their amount of food. Now they eat a lot, so they need a lot of stuff. And so we try to take care of them. I would guess 650, divide that by 4, and that's what we spend a week in groceries. Um, the catch or the key to saving yourself money is not necessarily in groceries, but if you do go buy groceries, you need to make sure you're not eating out as much. One of the silly things that humans do or people do is between these two numbers, you'll go to the grocery store and you'll buy a bunch of groceries, and then that same day you'll go out to eat. Why would you do that? You just bought groceries to eat. Why are you going out to eat as well? You're doubling what your expenses in food. So one of the things that my wife and I try to do is we try to budget an amount that we'll eat out during the month or whatever we're trying to do. So like if we say we go to a movie and we go out to eat before that, that's part of this budget is eating out. So we don't try to eat out too much. We try to limit ourselves to about once a weekend or twice a weekend, and we can usually do that with 175 bucks. Um, and then the rest of it, we're trying to eat at home and do meals on as cheaply as we possibly can. Because if you let it, food can really get out of control. And the funny thing about buying groceries, and sorry if I'm going on a tangent here, but I want you to think about this. I want you to go home, look in your cupboards, and think about how many things are sitting there that you are never going to eat, but you thought was a good idea to buy maybe even a year or two ago. I challenge you to go home and look in your cabinets and see if there's something just sitting there. Maybe just throw that away, and then think twice again before you buy something. Am I really going to eat this? It's kind of crazy how people do it, but they do. They'll buy stuff, just leave it on the shelf, and they'll never use it. Um, Another thing we budget for, $50 in clothing. So try not to spend more than $50 in clothing in a month. The thing about that is I won't spend $50 a month in clothing. So that number or that amount that we allocate for that accrues over time. And so maybe in like a month, actually probably every 3 to 4 months, I'll go out and I'll get a piece of clothing or an article of clothing for this or that. It might be for work. It might be for like the Chiefs game, because we're going to the Chiefs game this coming weekend. So I've had money set aside in this budget that's accrued or built up, and now I can use it to make those purchases and have a little fun when I go to a Chiefs game or when we do things like that. So, or when I need clothing for work. So that's one of the things I put aside. In addition to that, I I have to put $25 aside for shoes every month. Now, do I buy shoes every month just like clothing? No. But I do buy shoes every year, and sometimes I buy 2 and 3 pairs a year. So take 25 times 12, you got 300 bucks that you can spend on shoes. All right. So that's kind of the way I look at that. And I will spend $300 on shoes in a year. I have 3 sports seasons that I work in: basketball, cross country, and golf. And I do tend to buy a pair of shoes for each one of those seasons. So $25, that's where it comes from. Fuel for vehicles, $275. That's pretty variable. That's what we try to keep it at, but I would tell you we probably spend closer to $350 in fuel in a month. We have a Suburban and a truck now. We used to have an economical vehicle that we tool around in, but now we had to scrap that idea because we just don't have enough space for all the stuff we haul around all over the place. So we bought a Suburban, something that would enclose and give us room for all the stuff we want to carry around and travel with when we go back and forth to Beloit. So we roughly spend, I'm going to change that number to $350 for fuel in a month. Okay? And if you want to calculate the gas price times your mileage, whatever you get per gallon, that could give you a rough estimate of every time you fill up. And then once you fill up, how many times are you filling up in a month? Is it once? Is it twice? Right now, because I live not very far from work, I bet I fill my truck up every 2 weeks. And it probably costs $70, $60, depending on what the gas price is, to fill my truck up. So there's $120, $140 just for my truck in a month. So that's not bad. That's way better than when I used to work in Belle Plaine and I drive 70 miles every day, minimum 70 miles every day. So our gas bill, our budget used to be $800 because I was driving every day to work for 30 miles, or 35 miles one way, 70 total. So something to think about there. You can really save money on your budget if you're not driving that far to work all the time. Underneath that, I have vehicle maintenance. I don't perform vehicle maintenance every month, but I do put $30 aside every month just in case something comes up. That usually takes care of any oil changes that would happen to come up. And in addition to that, you're going to have to get tires, and you may have other things that need improvements over time so you can keep them good. And I want my vehicles to run good over time, so I make sure to take care of all the little maintenance issues that need to be taken care of with not just tires but brakes and brake pads and all kinds of things like that. So if you put away or allocate for $30 a month and don't use it every month, then over time that builds up too, and you can use that towards whatever vehicle maintenance costs you might have. Underneath that, I have car insurance. It's about $125 a month for both of our vehicles, and actually that's changed. That's another number that I need to adjust. That number is more like 175 now because we got a different vehicle. And the newer the vehicle, the higher the cost in insurance. That's just the way it is. And vehicle costs, as far as insurance is concerned, it's one of the most annoying costs you'll ever have to pay because it's one of those things that never goes down. It's really frustrating. You'd think it would, but it doesn't. They always try to find a way to raise it up. So underneath that, you have household, things for your household, any random thing you might need. I put aside $250 a month for that. Do we usually spend $250 a month? No, I bet we spend about $125. But over time, again, that's one of those things that builds up. Let's say we need a couch. Let's say we need a new TV because the other one went out, because TVs aren't built to last anymore. Well, that's one of those things that if you have money built up over time because you haven't been spending all of it, you can make those purchases. I would also, today there's so many things where it's interest-free financing that you can buy them and just spend your monthly cash and take care of it that way too. So we'll talk more about that when we talk about loans and buying things on credit. But for now, household budget, $250 for just things that we might need. That could include silverware. That could include spatulas. Anything, lamps. Just your everyday household things. And then daycare. Daycare is it's $130 a week for me. So depending on whether there's 4 or 5 weeks, it's usually somewhere around $500 a month. All right, so that's what I've got $520 there for, and I'll have daycare for the next 2 years after this year. So it's one of those expenses that's kind of crazy. Believe it or not, when we had Mackenzie, we sent her to a daycare center, and oh my goodness, it was $880 a month for that. It was ridiculous. It was like $220 a week. If I had to sell you on, if you can find an in-home daycare of people that you trust, do the in-home. It's going to save you an incredible amount of money. We just gave away money when we did that, and I won't name the center, but I would tell you that the center that we took our kid to, Mackenzie, our daughter, she went to 3 different centers, and not a single one of them took very good care of her. It was very frustrating, very, very frustrating. So she's still here, and she's a good kid, but man, that was tough. So if you can, in-home daycare is going to be cheaper, and if you know the person, it's probably going to be better. The last thing down there is entertainment, $300 a month. That's probably an exaggeration. I would make it more like $200 a month. And I only say that because now that we have 2 kids and we're going everywhere with them, it's probably that money is probably geared more towards them now. So I'm going to put down here below that, I'm just going to put kids entertainment because I have kids now, and we probably spend at least $100 a month on them. So those 2 things are kind of relative and tied together, these 2 items right here. So that could fluctuate between the 2, but I know we go and we try to do things and enjoy the amenities that we have here in Wichita, and so that's part of what this amount or what we're budgeting for there. Okay. Now the catch is with all of these, and I mentioned this a little bit, you need to be careful about how you spend these. If you can stick to your budget, you're going to do well. If you go outside your budget all the time and you don't pay attention to what you're spending versus what you allocated here, that's going to make your life a little bit more difficult. So let's see what my total variable expenses are here. So total variable expenses, type that in, and then we're going to auto sum those again just like we did the other numbers. Come over here, select them all, hit enter. Oh wow, that's a lot of money, isn't it? We're going to bold that. We got total variable expenses, we got total fixed expenses, and then back up here we have our take-home pay, the amount of money we can spend. And so the next thing I want you to do is I want you to take this amount, well, let me go backtrack. Down here, you're going to do net savings / loss. All right? So underneath total variable expenses, you're going to do net savings / loss. And we're going to actually fill this in. So I want you to select these 2 cells. I want you to go to your paint can, and we're going to fill this in with a green color. All right, and with that still selected, you're then going to come back up here and you're going to change the font color to white. and you're going to bold it. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do over here in this particular cell, B, it looks like B40 for me. I don't know what it is for you. You're going to go equals, just like we start a formula. You're going to go click on this number up here that was your net take-home pay. You're going to select minus. You're going to click on total fixed expenses. Then you're going to go minus again. And you're going to click on, I'm going to scroll down here, your total variable expenses. And you're going to hit enter. And hopefully you see a positive number here. Now I know one of you had something in the millions, so you're probably going to have a positive number there. But look at my numbers. This is a real situation. This is a real scenario. So right now it's showing that I'm negative 2,584, 58 even. So oh, that 58 cents. But here's what I want you to think about. What's missing? What have I not put in here? Because you know and I know that I'm not losing money every month, right? So maybe you figured it out by now, but one of the things that I'm going to throw in here, I or we have dual income. Remember, I only showed you roughly what I make. How about my wife? She also makes money, right? So my wife makes about the same amount as I do. She makes about $3,700 a month. All right, whoops. We're going to put Kendra as my wife's name. Kendra's take home is almost identical. So 3,700. And now my total net take home pay is going to include this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to my formula. You don't have this option, but I'm just going to show you what it looks like. I'm going to go back up to my formula, and I'm going to add my wife's take-home pay. And I'm going to hit enter. And now that's our actual combined take-home pay, and this is what we have left over. All right, now the thing you have to ask yourself, the real question you have to ask, what do I do with this extra money if I can meet this budget? Well, one of the things that I want you to understand, and this is probably in addition to making sure you meet the numbers here in this column and not go past them, this number right here is your cushion. And you want a cushion because you may potentially go over this. But here's the big deal. Here's the thing you need to take more than anything else. You don't want to go over that and cut into your cushion, because that cushion is going to build what's called a security. It's going to build your just-in-case fund. So if I can save $1,100 a month for 12 months, do the math. You can tell if it was just 1,000, 12 times 1,000 is $12,000. If you can do that for an entire year, you've got $12,000 extra dollars. Now, I'm going to have like quite a bit more. I mean, I got 115 in addition to that, so that's another 1,200. So I'm going to have $13,200 at the end of the year if I can stick to this budget, or me and my wife can stick to this budget, and that'll just be sitting there in savings. Or, you know, sometimes things come up. Like my son went to the hospital yesterday, and it was $500 for him to go to the emergency room. Well, I don't have to worry about the $500 because I've got 1,000 right here left over. He could go to the emergency room every month, and I'd still be up $500 or $600. Now, I don't want that to happen, but that's the reality that I live in. And so one of the things that you really need to consider, you need to think about when you're making your budgets in the future for your life, your security, is can I get in a situation where I'm not living paycheck to paycheck, I'm living net pay savings every month. Net pay savings every month. So if this was a slash loss, that's if this was going to stay negative. That would be the loss part. We don't ever want the loss part. You don't ever want to live there. All right. And sometimes it's unfortunate people have to live in that setting. But I'm telling you right now, if you can make yourself meet these numbers and force yourself not to overspend, you can do just what I do here. All right. And like I said, I am middle income. I don't do anything special. I just teach and coach a bunch of things, and then on the side I teach a couple friends classes. So it is as simple as that, and you can do this on a smaller budget. It just depends on what you want to do and what kind of lifestyle you want to live. Okay, and I think this is perfect for me and my family, and it helps us stay secure and take care of the things we need to take care of. So I encourage you to do the same. That's going to wrap up this particular part of the lesson. There is one more thing I want you to do, okay? So that's all the lecturing. The next thing I want you to do is I want you, now that you have this made, I want you now to create a budget to keep track of for a week. And I want to see what you are spending for an entire week. And let's see where your money's really going and what that might look like. I got a sheet 2 over here I'm going to click on. And so across the top, you're going to have, it's going to be Tuesday, so you're going to go Tuesday to Tuesday. And you're going to start tracking, okay, how much did I spend on food today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so forth and so on. How much did I spend on entertainment? Do I have a phone bill, water, cable, all those things. Even if your parents pay for it, even if they pay for it, I want you to track and figure out how much it costs you for those meals. All right? Because eventually someday you're going to have to pay for it. And let's see how much you cost. Let's see how much you're costing yourself in general over a week's time. All right? It's always a fun experiment. If you make money, put a blank in here for income. Some of you have jobs. Put a spot in there for income and tell me if you're making any money that week. All right? So we can compare your cost versus your income, and let's see if you're positive or negative right now. All right? So after you get done doing the original budget, I want you to come over here and make this on a separate sheet. Just hit the plus button, add a separate sheet, sheet 2, and you can label that your weekly budget down here on the sheet tab. And the other one, this one should be labeled your monthly budget. Okay? And that's it. That's the lesson for today. If you get done early, by all means, you can work on other work. But please take care of your business, and we will see you on Wednesday. Thank you.